Hey guys, welcome back to my Daily News X. I'm your host Kramer, and today we're diving into a tense flashpoint in global security. Russia's threats to the US and NATO over the possibility of tomahawk missiles being sent to Ukraine. So we'll dig into why Moscow is warning, how powerful tomahawks are, what risk Americans might face, and what the US and NATO may do next. So let's dig into this so you can understand better the situation and what's going on. So the big question is here right now, guys. Why is Russia threatening the United States of America and NATO now? Russia viewed the U.S. supplying Tomahawk cruise missiles to Ukraine as a major escalation. Vladimir Putin has warned that such a move would destroy U.S.-Russia relations and usher in a new level of escalation. From Moscow's perspective, allowing Ukraine to strike deep into Russian territory changes the balance of the game. It raises the possibility of critical Russian infrastructure being targeted by US-American weapons. Russian officials have also threatened to shoot down tomahawks and destroy launchers or bases that facilitate these missiles if they are provided to Ukraine. So Andrei Kartapolov, a Russian legislator, said, "We will find ways to hurt those who cause us trouble." In Putin's recent speeches, he's framed Western support for Ukraine as a direct aggression towards Russia, arguing that supplying long-range missiles crosses his red line. So why now? Because Ukraine is making incremental gains, and the US and NATO are under pressure to give Kiev more potent weaponry. Russia wants to deter that by raising the cost. Now, I want to talk about what actually are the Tomahawk missiles. Also, what are his capabilities and limitations. I want to break it down so you can see how this weapon actually works, because it has his limits, believe it or not, and capabilities. So the Tomahawk is a long-range supersonic cruise missile, and it's primarily used for land attack missions only. His newer variants, like for example the Block 4 or Block 5, have improved navigation, in-flight retargeting, and networked sensor capabilities. The range is significant. Published estimates place it at over 1,036 kilometers. That's equal to over 900 miles for certain versions. The older versions had ranges up to 1,350 nautical miles, or that's equivalent to 1,550 miles. That's for some configurations, of course. It can carry conventional warheads. Yep, just like it sounds. You hear it right here in this segment. Warheads. And I think that's one of the main reasons why Vladimir Putin is scared of shit right now, because he knows what these capabilities of these weapons are, because they carry high explosive submunitions or special warhead types configured for hardened targets. So what is the nuclear role of this weapon right here? Because historically, the TLAM-N version of the Tomahawk can carry a nuclear warheads, better known as W-80 warheads, that can deal in range up to 5 to 150 kilotons payload. But the variant is retired. So in current US doctrine, Tomahawks used today are conventionally armed. They do not carry, I repeat, they do not carry nuclear payloads in active use. Now, what are some of the limitations and challenges for this weapon? Because being supersonic, it can travel from Mach 0.7 to Mach 0.8. They are vulnerable, believe it or not, to advanced air defenses, anti-cruise missile systems, and electronic warfare. Accurate targeting deep inside enemy territory depends heavily on intelligence, meaning Ukrainian intelligence, satellite networks, US involvement in this, we know with their intelligence also as well, or NATO. Real-time updates and secure guidance links, meaning high internet connection. Launch platforms matter because most Tomahawks are launched from US Navy ships or submarines. via vertical launch systems or torpedo tubes. Ukraine doesn't currently possess that type of infrastructure, by the way. Supply is limited. The US may not have large surplus stock to spare without affecting other mission priorities. Bottom line, guys, yes, tomahawks can theoretically strike deep into Russian territory, but that's depending on the type of variant. But in practice, their effectiveness hinges on many dependencies and risk. Now, I want to talk about Trump, because I think Trump has not decided to give these weapons yet. And also, I want to talk about what's NATO's role on this, because so far, no definite decision from President Trump has said that he wants to see how Ukraine plans to use these missiles before being approved to the transfer directly to them. Also, Mr. Vice President J.D. Vance has floated the idea that the U.S. is discussing providing tomahawks, but not a formal commitment yet. If the U.S. decides to give these weapons, it's going to give it to NATO. It won't give it to Ukraine directly, first of all. Because according to multiple sources, U.S. officials believe it's unlikely, largely due to limited inventories and logistics constraints. Now, what is NATO's part on this? Because NATO is expected to coordinate with Ukraine on how to integrate and protect these systems if supplied from Russian retaliation. I believe Ukraine may use this weapon maybe like a bargain, some type of, I have them, Putin, but if you move forward or you try a different type of approach, we're going to get you. We're going to get you strategic points or infrastructure you have that are very critical to your country. Some European allies might help with logistics, training, intelligence sharing, air defense systems, and maintenance support. NATO could also consider deploying defense systems in allied territories to guard against spillover attacks or countermeasures from Russia. Any deployment of offensive weapons in NATO may trigger debates about Article 5 obligation, meaning collective defense, and escalation thresholds. In public statements, the U.S. has not expressed a desire to engage directly, I repeat, has not expressed a desire to engage directly in ground war against Russia. The support is framed as enabling Ukraine to defend itself only. But critics warn that arming Kiev with deeper strike capacity risks dragging NATO deeper into the conflict. I think NATO is already in deep trouble with Russia either way, so it doesn't really matter. Now, does the U.S. aim to escalate or take on Russia directly? That's a big question to ask. Officially, the U.S. posture is to support Ukraine only while avoiding direct military confrontation with Russia. The aim is manage escalation, providing enough capability to impose costs on aggression without crossing a threshold that invites a full-scale war with Russia. However, critics and analysts worry that providing long-range missiles could pull NATO and the U.S. into more direct conflict. Russia clearly frames it that way. Putin claims that giving tomahawks to Ukraine, like he said in his speech recently, will bring U.S. forces into Russian retaliation. So while the U.S. does not appear to want to start a direct war, the risk of escalation is non-trivial, meaning it could happen at any time, any moment. Now, what can Americans, us citizens, do to protect ourselves? When it comes to national level threats, nuclear or cyber, most of the responsibility lies with the governments and defense agencies, but also individuals can take steps. So I don't know if I mentioned this in my previous video, what you can do to, prep yourself and get ready for in case of any event or any situation happens in the future. But one of the good tips I can give you is stay informed and demand government accountability. Be aware of civil defense plans in your region, meaning evacuation or sheltering. Support policies that strengthen homeland defense, cybersecurity, and resilience. Cyber hygiene. And no, again, I don't mean your daily routine, your toothbrush, your hairbrush. No, I mean use a strong, unique passwords. Enable multi-factor authentication on all accounts. Keep software and operating systems patched, meaning up to date. So start digging in your Windows, or MacBooks, and making it up to date. Be alert for phishing, disinformation campaigns, or attempts to sow chaos in communications and infrastructure. I don't know if you guys saw a movie back in the times, late 90s. I think it was called Red Dawn. I think let's go back to the 80s, by the way. But there was a new version that came out in the early 2000s about misinformation. Because I saw the airplanes coming down, Russian, communist, or Chinese airplanes sending flyers to the ground with misinformation about invasion of the China communists. And this was a big movie, and it gave me a lot to think about it when I saw this movie, because it could happen, in the future. You never know. Emergency preparedness. Keep a basic supply kit. For example, water, food supplies, first aid kits, flashlights, battery backups. This can be on hand, when needed. So the food supplies, you can buy them in Amazon. They can last up to 6 to 8 months, sometimes 15 to 20 years, depends on which ones you buy. Know where secure shelters or basements exist near you for regions with nuclear threat protocols. That's something you need to do research for it. Practice drills in your household. What will we do if your communications go down? What's our plan for sudden evacuation? Those are things that you need to think about it and do it with your family. Community resilience. Foster communications in your local community. Neighborhood networks for mutual aid. Support local infrastructure resilience, meaning power grids and communications. Advocate for investing in early warning systems and civil defense. Mental readiness and vigilance. Be prepared for propaganda, misinformation, especially in times of crisis. Resist panic, but stay alert to credible threats. While the likelihood of a nuclear strike in the US is very low, events like cyber attacks, which is, I think mostly that's what's going to happen. I think Russia is going to retaliate with some type of cyber attacks, within the US bases, or maybe Taiwan or Ukraine or other type of or NATO countries, they may attack our satellites, infrastructure, and make our power grid goes down maybe. Communication systems are more plausible. The better that we are prepared, the less vulnerable that we become. All right, guys. So to sum up this podcast, Russia is using a bold threat that sending tomahawks to Ukraine will provoke retaliation. He views it as a crossing a red line. Tomahawks are potent, long-range cruise missiles, but constrained by platform requirements, defenses, supply, and targeting support. Trump has not made a final decision. U.S. officials see significant logistics and strategic barriers. NATO's role will be to coordinate defense, logistics, and deterrence support, but deploying offensive systems could complicate alliance obligations. The U.S. seeks to help Ukraine without triggering a full-blown conflict, but escalation risks still exist at large. As Americans, all we can do is stay prepped and ready. We can't control geopolitics, but we can bolster our personal, technological, and community resilience, especially in cybersecurity and emergency readiness. All right, guys, so that's a wrap for today's episode of my Daily News X. If you found this very useful, please share it, subscribe it, and let me know your thoughts and your comments down below. Are you worried about the escalation in this country? What would you like me to cover in the next couple of days? Please stay sharp, stay prepared, and I'll see you on the next episode. Until then, have yourself a great day.